What if our first encounter with aliens wasn't all peace, handshakes, and high-tech wisdom, but more like a flirty death wish? Back in 1995, a wild sci-fi horror movie called Species dropped, and it had one hell of a concept. Imagine the government mixing human DNA with alien genes and accidentally creating a drop-dead gorgeous killer named Syl. Yeah, not your average lab experiment. Designed by the same twisted genius behind Alien, H.R. Giger, Syl is less E.T. phone home and more E.T. wants to mate and annihilate. Today, we're diving into the Species universe. Secret labs, alien DNA, crazy powers, all of it. Let's get into it. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The birth of a hybrid. What is Syl? It all began with a transmission that would change humanity forever. In 1974, Earth's scientists sent a hopeful message into the cosmos. This was part of the real-life SETI, or Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program, and the message contained detailed information about Earth's biology, more specifically, the structure of DNA. The idea was to reach out to them in hopes of hearing back from an alien civilization. They were desperately waiting for a response. And well, someone did. Around 20 years later, Earth receives not one, but two alien transmissions. The first is a seemingly friendly blueprint for creating limitless fuel using a methane catalyst. Everyone was over the top with this breakthrough. Scientists at the government-led SETI lab assumed the senders were benevolent and advanced creatures, but that assumption turned out to be catastrophic. The second message was a more complicated one and infinitely more dangerous. It contained a complete alien DNA sequence along with instructions on how to splice it with human genetic material. Ignoring every red flag in the world, a group led by Dr. Xavier Fitch, played by Ben Kingsley, decided to proceed with this crazy idea. They engineered a hybrid life form, blending alien DNA with human traits. And because they apparently believed that females were more docile and controllable, they opted to create a female specimen. Out of 100 experimental ova, only one succeeded, and that's how Syl came to life. From the outside, Syl appeared to be a normal human, but that was far from true. In just 3 months, she matured into a 12-year-old, which indicated just one of many biological anomalies. At night, she experienced violent nightmares, visions of alien worlds, strange trains, and unknown urges. As her aggression and strength increased, the scientists grew increasingly fearful and started viewing her as a potential threat to national security. And what do you do when you create a Frankenstein's monster? Yes, you try to kill it. But Syl wasn't going to go down that easily. After surviving a failed murder attempt by cyanide gas, Syl escaped the facility, tearing through glass, guards, and containment systems in her way with alarming ease. And just like that, she disappeared into the outside world, alone and now fully aware of her purpose. This was followed by a deadly game of hide-and-seek between her and the US government, which assembled a team of experts to track her down. Anthropologist Dr. Stephen Arden, molecular biologist Dr. Laura Baker, empath Dan Smithson, and the tough-as-nails mercenary Preston Press Lennox set out on a mission to find her before she can start breeding. And that's where the true horror began. Syl is a genetic masterpiece with numerous abilities. She has accelerated healing and can sense male fertility because her instincts are purely reproductive. Her body can sprout deadly retractable tentacles, which are stored under her skin and breasts, and those pretty things were majorly used to stab, grab, and finish up her victims. She can even cocoon herself and emerge fully grown, almost like a butterfly. Evolutionarily designed for perfection, the female gender of her species was biologically driven to mate with suitable hosts to bear offspring. Emotions and morality didn't quite exist in this equation, so we can't really blame her. Syl's rampage. Species, 1995. One of the most iconic horror moments in the film is the cocoon sequence. As Sil morphs on the train into her adult form, tendrils snake from beneath her skin, creating a pulsating biological cocoon. She kills a train conductor who came too close when she was rapidly mutating into an adult human. The scene looks both beautiful and grotesque, which is a showcase of H.R. Giger's nightmarish creature design. Sil's alien body clearly bears Giger's signature touch, which is reminiscent of his legendary work on the Alien franchise. She emerged to be this stunning, seductive woman played by Natasha Henstridge. Sil's choice to hide aboard the train proved effective. It was easier to slip through the government's fingers. That, and also her constantly changing her appearance. You see, the security was focused on finding a child, not an adult woman, so this misdirection bought her some time to acclimate and learn. As the story progresses, Sil becomes more cunning. After narrowly escaping from the team a few times, she starts using more advanced tactics. She fakes car accidents, changes her hair color, and even manipulates people emotionally. In several scenes, she even mimics human behavior like watching TV, or on a few rare instances, shows flashes of emotion. But in the end, her programming always wins. With the instincts of a predator combined with the allure of a supermodel, she used both these things to blend into human society while also tracking potential partners. But make no mistake, this isn't some love story. Sil's idea of reproduction is cold and calculated. Almost immediately after arriving in Los Angeles, Sil begins testing out her ability to attract men. But her alien biology adds a terrifying twist to the dating game. You see, she can instantly detect genetic imperfections, and when you're specifically looking for a guy only to have children, you couldn't care less about their looks. The real deal is their DNA. Her first attempted baby daddy was a man she met at a nightclub. Everything was going smoothly, but as it turns out, the guy was diabetic. That's a waste of her precious time. She decided to walk away, but not before killing him in a brutal fashion. Anyone who wastes her time is as good as dead meat. Meanwhile, the team assembled by Xavier Fitch is hot on her trail. They look up everyone, from witnesses to mutilated bodies. At one point, she even targeted Arden, the very scientist tracking her down. She seduces him and successfully mates this time, resulting in an instant pregnancy. But her disguise doesn't last. Once Arden realizes who she is, she kills him too, leaving yet another gruesome scene behind. It's not too long before the team tracks her down to a sewer system underneath the city. Here, we witness a claustrophobic chase scene through tunnels and oil pools, with narrow corridors. One by one, Sil strikes Fitch in a surprise attack. This showed us that no one was truly safe, not even the man who brought her into the world. Even though she was half human, she didn't seem to have an ounce of humanity. Sil killed without hesitation and adapted to her surroundings at an inhuman speed. Every interaction with humans was also very strategic, because you're either helping her cause or in the way of doing so. There was no in between. Sil then gives birth to her child in mere moments. The infant is already evolved, aggressive, and poses just as much of a threat as Sil herself. But then Dan sets the child ablaze, sending it tumbling into a pool of oil. But this only enrages Sil further. She transforms fully into her alien form, with long limbs, sharp claws, pulsating tendrils, and engages in a final showdown with Press. Eventually, Press manages to fire a grenade into her as she clings to Dan. The explosion sends her and any hope of her species into a fiery death. It's the climax the movie builds toward, balancing practical effects, intense atmosphere, and full-blown creature horror. Or so we think. In a classic horror twist, the final scene shows a rat nibbling on one of Sil's severed tentacles. Suddenly, the rat's tongue mutates into tendril-like features and attacks another rat. The cycle has already begun again. Sil wasn't just a threat, she was a prototype, and the worst may still be out there. Even in her most terrifying moments, there's something unsettlingly tragic about her. Perhaps the fact that Sil didn't ask to be created. I mean, why create something and then hunt it because it's too dangerous for you? But let's pause for a moment to appreciate her visual identity. H.R. Giger's creature design deserves a spotlight here. Giger was insistent that Sil not become a rehash of his previous work on Alien, so he made subtle but distinct changes. While the xenomorph was skeletal and biomechanical, Syl retains a humanoid form with a disturbingly sensual structure. Her alien form has feminine curves and fluid movements, but it's laced with dangerous spikes and unnatural textures that make her feel both erotic and monstrous. H.R. Giger, the guy who designed the creatures in Alien, had some real issues with how Species was handled. He wasn't happy that the studio toned down a lot of his designs. He even sent them angry faxes about it. But even with all that drama, you can still see his style all over Syl, especially in her transformations and those creepy cocoon scenes. By the end of Species, it's more than just a monster movie. It's a story about science going way too far. Syl isn't just scary, she's also kind of tragic. Her rampage really stands out in 90s sci-fi horror, and this is just the start of what the Species series gets into. Legacy of the DNA, Species 2 and 3. After the events of the first film, the Species franchise took a more militarized turn. In Species 2 from 1998, the alien threat resurfaces through an entirely new host. The US sends a manned mission to Mars, and during the mission, astronaut Patrick Ross becomes infected with alien DNA. Unlike Syl, Patrick is fully human at the start of the film, but once he returns to Earth, the alien influence quickly starts spreading its wings. Patrick becomes the male counterpart to Syl and is driven by the same primal urge to spread that alien DNA. But unlike Syl, Patrick's rampage is far more aggressive and overt. He leaves a trail of bodies on his way as he impregnates numerous women, all of whom die when the alien embryos violently emerge after some rapid gestation. This time, the danger is multiplied tenfold because a man can infect multiple women in a short period of time, which makes containment almost impossible. The government initiates a new operation, which includes activating a genetically modified clone of Syl called Eve. She's visually identical to Syl since she was created using preserved alien and human DNA. But unlike Syl, Eve is kept under strict surveillance and has not been exposed to the outside world. Her role has a dual purpose, both as a scientific experiment and a fail-safe weapon. But what really distinguishes Eve is her internal struggle. You see, she's far more humanized than Syl, and shows signs of empathy and restraint. But once Patrick begins his reproductive spree, Eve experiences a telepathic link to him. Their DNA is calling to one another, and she finds herself drawn to him despite the efforts of her handlers. This link reinforces the idea that alien hybrids are connected on a cellular and psychic level, almost a hive-like instinct to find and reproduce with her own kind. Patrick Ross is treated as both a victim and a weapon. The US military, instead of shutting down the project after the first disaster, tried to harness the alien DNA for their own purposes. Their gamble results in mass casualties and further loss of control. The themes in Species 2 lean heavily into biological warfare and the dangers of weaponizing alien genetics. Eventually, Patrick and Eve confront each other in a climactic battle. Eve is ultimately killed, but not before she helps the team eliminate Patrick. Her death is kind of symbolic. It's like the end of what could have been a more peaceful hybrid. But even in death, the alien DNA proves persistent. Before Eve dies, she becomes pregnant, which leads to Species 3. Released in 2004 as a direct-to-video sequel, Species 3 introduces a new hybrid, Sarah. She is the daughter of Eve, and unlike her predecessors, has inherited a more balanced combination of human and alien traits. She looks fully human, but her physiology is entirely alien. And even though her journey is driven by the same need to find a mate, she's being hunted both by those who want to destroy her and by other hybrids who view her as a threat. As Sarah grows up, it becomes clear that the alien DNA is no longer stable. We see multiple hybrids emerge throughout the film, with some being partially formed and others mutated beyond recognition. Unlike Syl and Patrick, who are near-perfect hybrids, these new versions are flawed and unstable because their genetic makeup is breaking down, and the alien strain is evolving in unpredictable ways. Some hybrids die quickly after transformation, while others are a parody of the original design. Sarah attempts to find a compatible mate who won't result in a catastrophic mutation. She's more thoughtful and selective than her parents and shows signs of intelligence and adaptability. However, the scientists tracking her, including a young biochemistry student, Dean, learn that even Sarah's DNA has begun to degrade. The alien species may have peaked with Sil and Eve, and what's left now are failed versions of perfection. The key theme in Species 3 is evolution, but not in the sense of natural selection, rather some accelerated mutation that's branching into unstable variants and making containment virtually impossible. Each new hybrid is a biological gamble, and every encounter increases the risk of creating something worse. The military presence is reduced in Species 3, replaced by academic and underground interests. Scientists now want to study Sarah, which is an upgrade from the kids in previous versions who just got scared and wanted to destroy her. They believe understanding the hybrid DNA could lead to breakthroughs in medicine or genetics, but somehow this obsession mirrors the original mistake made in Species, which valued scientific progress over safety. This human ambition and curiosity is a dangerous thing, you see. Throughout the franchise, it's only resulted in death and chaos. By the end of Species 3, Sarah has grown disillusioned as she realizes that no matter how carefully she chooses, the outcome will always be either death or some horrific mutation. As we said, she's smarter than her parents and somehow tries to rise above her natural urges. She chooses to sacrifice herself to end the toxic cycle. But as with all entries in the Species franchise, the ending suggests the threat isn't truly gone. The DNA still exists along with the temptation to use it. The Last Remnant, Species: The Awakening. By the time we get to Species: The Awakening in 2007, the franchise takes a bit of a left turn. Instead of continuing the direct storyline of Sil, Eve, or Sarah, this fourth film acts more like a soft reboot. It loosely ties into the previous lore just enough to keep the DNA continuity, but mostly stands on its own. New setting, new characters, same alien problem. This time, the spotlight is on Miranda Hollander, a college professor living a seemingly normal life. She's brilliant, respected, and for the most part, human, or so she thinks. She doesn't notice it till a few blackouts, but Miranda suddenly starts experiencing violent episodes. And let's just say things escalate fast from there, like waking up next to a pile of dead bodies kinda fast. In a search for answers, she turns to her uncle, Tom Hollander, a geneticist who raised her after her parents died in a car crash. And, surprise, surprise, Uncle Tom's been keeping a pretty massive secret. Miranda is actually a hybrid, the result of an experiment involving alien and human DNA. Sound familiar? Yeah, Tom worked on the same type of program that originally created Sil and Eve. Turns out he's cloned alien DNA with a human embryo and raised Miranda as his own, trying to keep her instincts under control using medication. But with age, stress, and a few skipped doses, her alien side starts taking over. What sets Miranda apart from previous hybrids is that she's not just driven by instinct, she knows how to fight it. There's a real tug-of-war happening inside her human identity versus her biological imperative to mate and propagate the species. The tone of Species: The Awakening leans a little more psychological, as in we're watching someone grapple with the knowledge that she was never fully human to begin with. It adds a layer of internal horror that wasn't quite as explored in the previous entries. Tom takes Miranda to Mexico, hoping to stabilize her condition with the help of an old colleague, but the plan backfires. Miranda's alien DNA begins asserting itself more aggressively. She starts seeing potential mates and spirals into a violent search for genetic compatibility. And while she doesn't want to hurt people, she can't really stop herself either. The alien side doesn't do morals, it does survival. Meanwhile, both the government and rogue scientists are lurking in the background as usual, and there's always someone who wants to use hybrids instead of destroying them. These groups see Miranda not as a threat but as a specimen, something to be studied, but none of them really understand the instability of what they're dealing with. Miranda herself is becoming unstable on a cellular level. By the third act, Miranda begins transforming more frequently and violently. She becomes aware of what she's capable of and what she might become if she gives in fully. Now she has to decide whether to live a human life that was never truly hers or embrace her your alien side and let it all go. That inner turmoil is what makes The Awakening stand out. The film ends on a pretty ambiguous note. Miranda ultimately dies, or so it appears, but not before the implication that the DNA is still out there. Whether it's in the hands of other scientists or hidden in a lab, the cycle isn't necessarily broken, it just pauses. And if species has taught us anything, it's that alien biology doesn't go down without a fight. What are the species, origin, and nature of the alien DNA? Alright, so let's talk about the actual species behind all the chaos. Because with the final release, it does close out the franchise with a slightly more reflective, character-driven take. It's the realization of one woman coming to terms with the fact that her entire existence was manufactured, and the alien side might win in the end. Species franchise gives us plenty of gory action and even some seductive horror. It mostly plays with one of sci-fi's oldest fears. What happens when humans mess with something they don't understand? The alien race behind Sil and her hybrid successors is never given a formal name. There's no home planet that we know of, no elaborate backstory, no cosmic empire or anything like that. It's just a signal. But that one signal was enough to set things in motion. This wasn't an invasion through ships and lasers, but rather an invitation that the Earth extended through the SETI program. And the aliens sent some instructions back. First, they offered a formula for unlimited energy through a methane catalyst, which, okay, was a gift. That was enough to lower the human guard, and once they felt safe, they finally sent their main gift. The implications here are huge because these aliens didn't need to travel across the stars. They let us do all the hard work. They gave us just enough information to build the monsters ourselves. Someone with superior biology and some rapid evolution. Basically, the perfect sleeper weapon. So what is this species exactly? Based on everything we see across the 4 films, they are an apex predator that uses reproduction as their primary means of expansion. The alien DNA itself is incredibly aggressive. Once it merges with a human embryo, it ends up dominating the entire genetic structure, resulting in a hybrid that looks human on the surface but operates on a completely different set of instincts. Sil, Eve, Sarah, Miranda, all of them show the same core traits: heightened intelligence, accelerated growth, superior strength, and an overwhelming need to find a genetically compatible mate, which on some level even humans tend to do, just not so aggressively. As we've seen in all the movies, the alien part of them doesn't care about morality or empathy. Although these hybrids may have human memories or even moments of emotional confusion, deep down they're driven by a singular instinct. A single mating attempt can lead to a full-term pregnancy and birth in mere hours. Sil's transformation in the first film shows just how fast these hybrids develop, and by the time we reach species 3, we're seeing even more mutations and instability, with the DNA evolving on its own. Unlike humans, their reproduction isn't about some relationships or legacy. Now, there's also a parasitic element to their biology. Once the alien DNA is introduced, it consumes the host's identity. Even Miranda in The Awakening, who was raised human and lived a normal life, couldn't suppress her alien side forever. And when it finally surfaced, it took over like a virus activating dormant code. And that's where the horror of the concept really hits. The films repeatedly show that once a hybrid is born, control becomes nearly impossible. Even the government and military, who keep trying to weaponize or contain the hybrids, end up creating worse problems. In many ways, the species functions like a biological version of a doomsday virus, constantly adapting and nearly unstoppable. In a way, we brought it upon ourselves. We assumed a peaceful alien civilization would be like us, maybe even better. We wanted answers, and we got a genome for our own extinction. And let's not forget the design language of the species with H.R. Giger's influence all over it. The biomechanical forms, the sexualized but horrifying alien shapes, the way tendrils emerge and retract, it's all meant to blur the line between attraction and fear. Giger wanted the audience to feel conflicted. Marvelous verdict. And that's the full breakdown of the Species saga. From Syl's terrifying birth to the mutating hybrids of the sequels, this franchise explores what happens when we invite the unknown and it decides to stay. At its core, Species is about our thirst for knowledge and control that can lead to monstrous consequences. Whether it's Syl, Eve, Sarah, or Miranda, each story is a warning about biology without boundaries. So what do you think of these alien species? Got a favorite moment or theory? Drop it in the comments. And if you enjoyed diving into this bizarre bio-horror universe, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe and stay wild. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.